Okay, so I'm just going to show you how you can get some 3D models from different sources into Revit. First thing I'll show you, if you don't know, a lot of sites like Herman Miller, who are the biggest furniture makers in the world, have Revit files now, which is a great thing. So that's sometimes the easiest thing. Find it on Herman Miller or one of those others that have Revit files, and it avoids all the issues you have converting things. But you won't find everything there. So, also don't forget about Revit City and those other places as well for Revit files. But say if you find something on a site like this, Archive 3D is a good one for 3D models, but they're not ever going to give you Revit files. They give you these other 3D formats, ArchiCAD, 3D Studio, 3D Studio Max, but no Revit. So to get those into Revit, let's just download that one. And I've got a bunch, I'll show you in a minute, that I've downloaded on the P drive. So, oh God, go away please. You don't want to like it. There we go, so just save as. And I'll just save it into the same place. So the 3D models, sorry, I had it there, it was taking up too much room, that's right, so I've moved it. And I'll put it back though, my general 3D library. There's an AutoCAD library that has a lot of 3D stuff in it as well. And once you know how to do this, you can use any of those 3D AutoCAD files, and there are stacks of them there. Oh no, this is only showing as zip files as well, so that's another thing. Okay, so if we go into there, yeah, there's a few there, but I'll put back the bigger 3D library that I had later as well. So that there is the new zip file I've downloaded, and I'll give it a better name. 3D rack, and just extract it all. Okay, so they're given those formats again, so 3ds and Max being the ones that you can use easily. GSM again is ArchiCAD. If you've got ArchiCAD, you can use it, but otherwise you can't. So when you go to import into Revit, you'll see you only have these options for 3D files. So they're all basically CAD formats, except for SketchUp. So you can bring SketchUp files straight into Revit, and that's the first thing I'd try if you want to bring a SketchUp file in. There's another way, if you can't get it to work that way, it's mainly the materials that will cause problems, and so you can try a roundabout way going into 3ds Max first and then into AutoCAD and back into Revit. But otherwise, if it's any of those more general 3D formats like 3ds, you can just bring them straight into AutoCAD. And really what you're trying to achieve here is a 3D file saved as a DWG file. And this is, apart from anything else, just to reinforce that basic concept that DWG is a more versatile 3D format than Revit, believe it or not. Revit, even though you're working in 3D all the time, it's not really a fully rounded 3D format. And so they expect you to use the DWG format for more detailed 3D geometry. And the DWG format's always going to be developed as a a high-end 3D format for dealing with complex geometry accurately. So as long as you can get into AutoCAD, then it'll work well. So on the Insert tab in AutoCAD, you can use import to bring in virtually any 3D format. And so here you can see all those main 3D formats. Unfortunately, Max files aren't there as an option, and neither is SketchUp, which is a bit strange. SketchUp files, like I said, you can bring them into 3ds Max first, save them as a DWG, bring them into AutoCAD from there. So with this, I can then go to find that file. There's my 3ds file that I've just downloaded. At all, except we don't care about the global settings. I'll remove that, and everything else there I want to import. So I'm just going to go OK. double click the wheel, and shift and middle mouse button to orbit, just like Revit. And as usual, it doesn't look anywhere near as good as it does in the image there. The geometry's all there, but the materials won't have come through probably. So you need to redo the materials in Revit. You can do them in AutoCAD as well if you like, but it's probably easier if you're using it for Revit to do the materials there. So, to first set it up for Revit, we need to get the size. And so I'm going to just quickly measure part of this, and we can see it's 154 units across. And you've got to use your judgment to work out what units have been used to create this thing. It depends entirely on the person who created it. So at a guess, I'd say that should be about 1.5 metres. I might just measure the height to double check that. I'd be pretty sure it's in centimetres, which is common for people on that site. So the height there, delta Z, 82 centimetres, sounds about right. So we can say, right, it's probably centimetres, which means if I scale it, just selecting it all using the scale tool, 0,0 is the base point, and then the scale factor I'll make 10, which should convert it into millimetres. And if you don't know, AutoCAD doesn't actually have a unit setting. When you type units, it brings up the units tool. Also, it does have a unit setting, but not for measurement units. This just is going to give you the number display options. But there's no option to choose metres or inches or anything like that. There's only an option to scale inserted content, which is a different thing. So to scale things in AutoCAD, you don't change the units, you physically scale objects, just like I have using the scale command. So that's the first thing. When you get a model you've downloaded into AutoCAD, make sure you scale it and get it to be the size you want it to be in millimetres. So if I measure across the front of this unit, a bit over 1 metre, that sounds right. So then looking at the layers, you can see it's got a bunch of layers, and so these objects should be broken up into layers, but all the layers are the same colour. So you can go and change the colours and make them different to get an idea what objects are on what layer. So really just setting it up for yourself to make it easier to work with in Revit. I'm just doing this randomly to a few of them. So every object come into a different layer there, which is, well, because of the way I imported it, I could have chosen a different option and had it done by material, and well, that often is a better option. But here you'd probably want to go and choose your own layers anyway. What I'm trying to show you is how to get the layers to display. So I'm going to select all of these things, and you can see the colours are red. I'll set it to by layer now. Then you can see the colours based upon the layers. But again here, it's probably going to work better for you if you manually put these things onto a simpler set of layers. So you can just go and make a new layer for say bench, another one for cabinet, and another one for legs. Oops. Make sure they're different colours. And manually, again, put these things onto those different layers so that when we're in Revit, we can access them. If they're not on different layers, it's almost impossible to adjust them in Revit. So here, cabinet, and those bench tops can all go onto bench. And all of the legs and the other connectors I'll just put onto the legs layer. Just missed a few things there. Really good trick then is to use purge. And I'm just going to do purge all items, and now looking in the layers I have much fewer layers, and I can see if I turn the layers other than the ones that I've used off, I can then see, right, there's just the bits that are left over, and yes, that's fine. Okay, so really good, just setting it up so that it's easier for you to manage it, and using Revit, purge again, just to keep it beat. Purge all items, there we go. Okay, so that's done. So save as. I shall save it into that same folder. That's annoying. Just type in .dwg. So that's ready to go into Revit. And so the way to bring it into Revit is, for things like this, always make a new family. So you don't want to be trying to manage that in a project. It's just too much work, and you've got to do it again if you want to use the file again. So here it would be, you could use furniture, but it's probably better to use casework, and then later on you could have it showing as being cut. Oh, well, furniture doesn't cut in a section, so furniture is good for chairs and things like that, because you don't want them to be showing as being cut in a section. But for something like this, it's more built-in. Well, it's probably not a built-in element, but you wanted to show the same as your built-in and have it cut in a section. Yes. So now I can just go to Insert, Import CAD. So we can all do this. Hey, find the file. Turn this current view only option off for now. I want it to come into all the views. Okay, so there it is. We can tell immediately that it's the right size, but also some of the geometry's gone a bit haywire, which is common, unfortunately, with models like this. So sometimes you've got to do a bit of rejigging to the original. Well, there it is. It's not actually gone haywire. I just didn't notice. Was when it was imported. So there, it's an easy thing to fix. Luckily, with this, I can just mirror this, and that should solve it. And I should have done the countertop at the same time. That's all right. Okay, so I should have really checked that in a 3D view, and we're in. So I'm so used to 2015 already. Oh, no, this is 2015. Sorry, 2016. Why can't I see my workspaces button? Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay, so that'll do. Save that again, import again. You know, if you have issues with the units, you can always set it to millimetres to force it to use millimetres, but here it seems to be going okay with the default settings, so that's fine. And so then, well, I might show you later how you can do the plan display, but for more complex models you need to think about the visibility settings. When you select the object, you can decide whether you want to show it in plan or these other views, and whether you want it showing at different detail levels. And that way you can then, for the plan view, looking at this in hidden line, it's probably okay, but a more complex, say, chair that has a lot of faces, you can draw a simpler version here using the detailing tools, symbolic lines and masking regions, and get something that'll display better for your plans than a complex 3D model, and just use the 3D model for the 3D views. And then to assign materials to this, if you go to Manage and then Object Styles, under Imported Objects you'll see the layers that have come in from AutoCAD. So here I've got my bench layer, and unfortunately you don't get the materials from your project file, so you generally have to make them in the family. So I'll just start with one of these, default. I'll duplicate it and call it, well, this is going to be a, let's just say it's a laminate. Well, it doesn't really matter what colour, let's just do it red, and go through the normal process to make a material. Plastic, and I'm going to change my mind, but I'll leave that material there for the cabinets actually, and so I'll do a new laminate. I'll make this cream for the bench top. So use vendor appearance, and I'll replace that with a fine texture. Indeed. And I don't want the bumps. I'll turn that off. And then just one last material for the legs. So I'll that's one's for the bench. The cabinets, I'll use that red, and the legs I'll just do something basic like stainless. So stainless. There we go. And so in realistic, you can see all those materials. Now I've missed a surface there, but because I've set the layers up, I can just re-import that, and it'll fix that up if I change it back in AutoCAD. So I'll just save that anyway as new family. So and so it's not really a problem if I need to go and fix that in AutoCAD. I can load it into the project now. It's a family, so I can use my component tool to place it. And so now I think about it, there's not many great reception areas here yet, but let's just put it somewhere in here. And then if I do want to fix up that that surface there, so it's because I didn't put it onto the right layer, so I'll fix that now, and I think the rest is actually okay. Save the file, back to Revit, switch to the family. Close any open views, switch back to the family. Delete this one and just insert again. You can't link into families. So there we are, that's fixed it. Save it, load it back into the project, and that'll bring the change across. So then in 3D, it's working with the materials. And that's really the main issue you'll have with things that you bring in from other formats. Yeah. So if you get something that you can't insert into Revit, you just need to use another program, and 3ds Max is the best for other 3D formats. But I'll show you that. And I'm going to show you a lot on 3ds Max over the next, well, probably in a couple of weeks. But I definitely want to give you an idea. It's not compulsory to use it, but it's an option for this subject.